Hey, taxpayers. In the last 20 or so years, I think people have gotten pretty good at knowing that the good Yu-Gi-Oh cards are the ones with effects like this, or maybe like this, and definitely not the ones that look like this. So, when Master Duel released their new pack and my gem balance looked like this, I knew the only deck for me was definitely the one made entirely out of pack filler that wants to summon Baby Dragon a whole bunch of times every turn. Yeah, during my goblin-induced fit of psychosis, I grew unreasonably attached to Materiactor, and I think my life is worse off for it. The deck functions similarly to Goblins because it's a rank 3 deck that just aimlessly throws material on board, hoping you know something they don't and can do something with them. But instead of playing cards that can, like, fulfill roles or further a game plan, we summon a dragon gifted with untapped power. In case you're wondering why we play Baby Dragon specifically, it's because it's the biggest dragon monster that isn't light or dark. I really wanted to play Hunter Dragon for sentimental reasons, but because you ping pong your vanilla in and out of the grave every other second, it being a Magnum target is a massive liability. There are a few other options like Toon Warrior for Synchro Lines or Gate Deeg for Dominance, but there really isn't anything better than an Easy Seals. Yeah, this deck doesn't have much going for it on paper, or in practice, or even aesthetically. A lot of these guys look like messes. They are my messes though, so I do expect you all to be nice to them. All three effect monsters are level 3 dragons, with Gigadra being your main normal summon and starter. Gigadra lets you discard a card to special summon a level 3 vanilla directly from your deck, or if you discard a vanilla, you can summon a reactor instead. Before Supreme Darkness, Materiactor was just a cruel practical joke by Jerome McHale with only a single main deck monster, but now that it actually has targets for the back half of its effect, Gigadra has ascended from objectively worse tour guide to still being worse than tour guide, but now in new and unique ways. Gigadra also is the only little critter to feature a lock of any kind, which does force some quirky concessions later and makes run-ins with Dark really funny. The monsters are rounded out by Exaraptor and Zeptwing, extenders that can pretend to be starters in a pinch. The Zeptwing summons itself if you have a reactor card on board, searches a Materiactor, and then reborns a vanilla. Exaraptor can discard a card to add a vanilla from deck or grave to hand, then summons itself, and also it's fucking cool loot, baby! Yeah, they're underperformers, to say the least, but my rank looks like this, so it's probably fine. I will say though, this is the last time I ever buy a deck with competitive pricing as one of the listed pros. Exagard is the government-mandated rank 3 extra deck starter, but it sets itself apart from its peers like Gabunga or Chariot Carry by just sucking. Sucking real bad. Like, it's so fucking bad. Do you have any idea how hard they have to fuck up for Terratop to be one of the worst starters in a modern rank 3 deck? You can squeeze a combo out of just Terratop by summoning Gigadra with Exagard, using its effect, making fucking Lavirtue Dragon to Nexus the Gigadra over to Exagard, but you still don't have a vanilla engrave for Exagard's bounce effect unless you rank up the Lavirtue into Xyz Armor Fortress and go through that package. You can also go from Terratop through the Xyz Armor cards into good cards like Fiendsmith stuff using Armored Shark, but I don't think it's particularly good because it takes like 4 extra bricks, only works with a Terratop start, and forces you to summon Root Water with a straight face. This is normally where the average YouTube commenter will inform me that actually it's okay to play 5 or more bricks because they're soft bricks and we have discard outlets anyway, but I really dislike that deck building mentality. I think the folks over at TCG Theory put it best in their video talking about Dragon Unity and the pitfalls it ends up in because of that same mentality. You gotta be careful not to give too many mice cookies or you'll end up with fucking free healthcare or something. I don't know, man. This one's going nowhere. The real kicker is that if you play the 5 bricks necessary for the Terratop package to really have oomph, your end board is still about as good, if not worse, than if you introduced your opponent to my good friend Smith. Yeah, sorry to the power gamers in the comments who are above the Fiendsmith, but it is the lone dash of salt on the proverbial chicken breast that is Materiactor. Such is the fate of any deck that can put 2 effect monsters on the field. One fun little extra piece you get to play is Mellow Melody, the Brass Djinn, because sometimes you have to do Fiendsmith stuff while Gigadra is Xyz locking you, and it sure is a generic extra deck light fiend. That's a good card. The pinch of synergy that lets you pretend there's more to it than 2 monsters make Moon is discarding Lurie to your starters, but that's like not special at all. For what little it's worth, Desiree does cover the biggest blind spot of the Materiactor end board by adding a way to negate spell cards. You can try to cover this with Materiactor Critical instead, but now you're wasting a search on Materiactor Critical, a card that just sucks. Oh boy, searchable trap card? That doesn't even destroy what it negates. Incredible stuff. Honestly, the biggest failing of Critical is that Exagard doesn't have enough material to support it, and the bounce without resolving Prima, but in the lines where Prima comes up, it takes the search that Critical wants, so it enters 2-card combo territory, at which point you may as well just not bother and just make the fucking Omni negate in your extra deck. While we're on the subject, Prima is a weird card. It's one of the few vanillas that actually has effect text, and being a Materiactor means it's one of the most accessible cards in the deck. Exaraptor searches it because it's a vanilla, Zeptwing searches it because it's a Materiactor, third thing for the rule of 3. Prima seems like a really underwhelming search target at basically all levels, but it's actually a pretty good option. Not just because the only real competition for vanilla pens is Tempura of Chance Ebby, but because unlike every other Materiactor card, it can represent an actually good card instead. Just do your best not to get caught with it on field past Summon 5. The face-up extra deck is one of the only places you can't fish it out of. Prima is super goated, also because it compresses the roles of both your random back row to search with Zeptwing when you already have Exaraptor, and the second vanilla you're forced to play for math reasons. In a deck filled with cards as rigid as Materiactors, it's nice to have a card that can actually do 2 things you want. When you go first uninterrupted, your bread and butter combo is to make Exagard, summon Zeptwing to fetch Exaraptor and Reborn of Vanilla, then link into Link Spider and use Exaraptor and Link Spider's effect to get 4 materials total on board to play with, and keep the Exagard. When you go for your Fiendsmith lines in this setup, it usually isn't worth making Caesar, because unless you start with Tract, you can't make Caesar before committing all 3 of your names, and having negative gas to push past the Nibiru with if they don't, just like forget to stop you before you make Caesar. The layered interruption of Lacrima Engrave is nice until your opponent sets 5 and you get totally owned. Halfway through your Fiendsmith line, when your EMZ is clear, you can link into IP or Seals. Really, it's up to you. Making IP gives you a really good reborn target for a Baoku, doubles your interruptions and lets you get full value out of sequence by linking it off before equipping, but it costs basically your entire hand to do with way less follow-up, and half the extra interruptions happen at the same time, so I don't really like that line match. Once Buyo comes to Master Duel, you can play that too by using Cherubini to send Buyo, then be half of a Bao, which isn't that great, but you get to play the Reacher, so it's actually the best thing you can do. Choosing Seals as part of your end board instead rocks because it lets you summon Zeptwing off turn for follow-up and body blocking if you need it, but you do have to be careful about using Zeptwing to summon or add back the vanilla if you use Seals before Exagard. Sometimes you need the extra body the vanilla gives you, and you end up pissing away Exagard's bounce because it only checks for vanillas in Grave specifically. Making Seals isn't technically optimal unless your opponent starts the turn by saying no hand traps though. It plays really poorly into Nibiru. I'll release a follow-up combo guide soon, but there's an alternate combo that beats both Droll and Nib. Don't get your hopes up too much though. It's good, but like, by Materiactor standards. It doesn't matter how much combo theory you know, sometimes they ash the Gigadra and it's just door over. It might be tempting to look at the extra and think you can get away with cutting Agnum Day, but you can't. Not because it's like absurdly broken, or because it has some special niche in this deck, it just doesn't anywhere else. It's because Materiactor monsters can't OTK for shit. Unless you have a grip with like triple Exaraptor, you can't kill to save your life. You're supposed to hit numbers with Exaraptor's Colute effect, but relying on a Colute in 2025 is just so sad, and you need like 3 of them to do anything, and you're still not killing unless you have another monster on field. It is extraordinarily funny to stack Exaraptors on Mellow Melody, though. Truly the thinking man's OTK tool. I don't know how to end this video. Alright, bye.